So we wanted to start off a little bit with just kind of catching up with us, partially about what we are seeing, some things that have changed, our attitude and the way we view what's going on with networks. And of course, anything that we see going on with networks applies to wireless networks. And also what we've been up to. Now, we do a lot here, a lot. And there's really 2 hours for me to try and squeeze everything I'd love to tell you into. So the things that I didn't really think I had enough agenda time to spend a full session on, I'm going to give you some little oversights as I kind of move through. Certainly doesn't mean for you, those of you in the room, ask a question. Obviously, if you see something, guys, online, ask that question. But this is kind of the quick overview before we go into some deep dives on some other stuff. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is kind of what we're envisioning and what we're seeing going on with networks. And we're really seeing that as innovation increases, this is causing a lot of troubles for people in their network. And one of the things is just advanced threats. Obviously, the more innovative people get, not everybody who's innovative is wearing the color hat we'd love them to be wearing. Let's just put it that way. So we're seeing a lot more advanced threats hitting the networks. The ecosystem is getting more and more complicated. We see people bringing in equipment to try and solve a variety of problems, and this oftentimes means having a lot of different equipment from a lot of different vendors. That tends to make people's lives very difficult. That complicates their ability to also do compliance, which is a big thing that people want to do in terms of making sure that their complex network is still okay. And then all those threats we talked about, how do you deal with those? That's a real issue. But all of this really boils down to the attack surface and what's going on with the attack surface. And when Fortinet started to really investigate the attack surface, and for those who haven't watched our presentation from last year, I'll give a quick little synopsis. This expansion of the attack surface is why Fortinet got into wireless so many years ago, was they found themselves constantly being asked by people, hey, can you do something, maybe working with some of these wireless vendors, because I always want to stick one of your firewalls right behind my wireless controller. And Fortinet said, well, shoot, we can go you one better. We can actually get into wireless ourselves. And that was really the foothold, is so many people were coming and talking about wireless as an attack vector that Fortinet said, well, we got to take this seriously. But this attack surface is actually getting more and more complicated because we're finding that a lot of companies' networks have varying trust levels throughout what is actually their network. And whenever you have these differing trust levels, you basically have an edge that in some way, shape, or form needs to be secured. And we're seeing these edges become kind of more pronounced, but also more subtle. So as branches kind of expand, you have this WAN edge oftentimes right at the branch itself. You have the access edge, that tends to be where wireless lives, right there at the access layer. We have this kind of meshing, there we go, of the cyber and the physical coming together at the OT edge. But we're also seeing compute move around, and this was something that is relatively recent in the way things have changed, the way people are utilizing their networks. But as compute moves from a traditional data center to other places, I also kind of have this compute edge. And what Fortinet's really looking at is, how do we make sure that we have the right product suite to be able to secure all of these edges in the right way? And again, wireless, of course, plays a very big role in that access edge. So as we've been thinking about this, our CEO, Ken Z, has started to kind of use and build upon a new phrase. And those who were here last year may remember we talked about this third generation of network security. And as he's continued to think about that, he's started to really start using security-driven networking as an important concept around what that means. The idea being, historically, whether we like it or not, a lot of networks were sort of built up out of the networking equipment, and then someone went, all right, how do I secure this thing? And kind of tried to wedge a firewall in there and put some other protections that way and said, okay, I think it's secure now, and went away happy. And that's not always the best way to go about it. In fact, the best way you can have is have security really at the core of what you want to do with your network. So the network itself is driven by the security that you want. And that is the concept behind security-driven networking, is you really want security to drive what you're doing so that no matter what edges you have, no matter what network you need to build, you can rest assured that it is secure. And that plays very well into the Fortinet security fabric. Anytime you see a presentation from us, you're going to hear us talk about the fabric because it's really key to all of this idea. Because all of our products coexist within a platform that can share information, can ensure that the security is shared, that everything is actually communicating with each other. It's a very broad platform. You can see we've got solutions across a wide variety of topic areas, and obviously we're going to be talking about the secure access area here with Wi-Fi. Being a fabric, being a platform, it's all integrated together. We also offer, fabric connectors and APIs so we can work with other equipment as well, because we know that, frankly, not everybody is going to install or have 100% Fortinet equipment, and what matters to us is security. So we want to make sure we can communicate and have that and integrate into your network to form the core of it. And realistically, these days, you need automation. Attacks come fast enough, things happen fast enough. You need to have automation to allow you to overcome what's happening with those advanced threats. So people who remember last year know I put up a slide that looked like this to show you all the different pieces of what people tend to think of as a network solution set, and take you through all the Fortinet offerings that match up to that. Now, I'm not going to march you through it again, but I did want to remind you of the areas, and then I'm going to kind of go through some of the things we've done in the last, I guess it's been about 11 months, I think, since the last one, in some of these areas and what's new. So the first and most obvious would be access points. Wi-Fi 6 technology is here, and Fortinet does have Wi-Fi 6 technology access points. Those are our FortiAP U431F and the FortiAP U433F. You will notice through the course of today, as was the joke made earlier, that almost all of our products are going to start with Forti. So this is our FortiAP. If you don't have your Fortinet secret decoder ring for access points with you today, that U that you see after FortiAP, that shows that this is one of our universal line of access points, meaning that that access point would be capable of being managed by any of our management solutions. I'm going to touch on the management solutions again in a little bit when I talk about what's updated there. So if you don't remember them, you're going to hear about it again. A couple things that we're particularly proud of with this access point, and that is, one, it is Fortinet's first tri-radio AP. And when we decided to really start making a tri-radio AP, we wanted to make sure that that tri-radio AP had as full of a feature set as possible. So we wanted to allow for a very flexible mode of operation with this. So mode 1 is kind of what we would consider the traditional one most people think about when they think about buying a tri-radio. I've got access on 2.4, access on 5 gig, and that third radio is scanning around, whether it's doing spectrum analysis, whether it's doing whips, WIDs, whatever I want, but that's primarily a scanning radio. But we're also enabling dual 5 gig. So I could do 5 gig, as well as scanning. But also something very unique to us from what we've seen in the industry so far is we will also allow you to pull that scanning radio off, leverage it as kind of a best effort 2x2 in the 2.4 band, and still have the dual 5 gig at 5. What we think is really nice about this is that means you have a single platform that you can spread throughout the site, use in the configuration that makes the most sense based upon where you install it, and have that full flexibility to get the operation you need in the location you need it.
Quick question.
Yeah,
Go
please.
back. What's the low and the high defining? Is that the channels or?
Yeah, so we'll have segmented the band. We'll have full details probably in the release notes as we continue to refine this. But yeah, so we'll segment the bottom half of the band, of the 5 gig band, is where one is band locked to, and the other one will be band locked to the high. When you put in the dual 5 gig mode, it's primarily about the bandpass filtering and obviously trying to make sure that they're not actively interfering with each other. Any other questions?
Coverage area.
Yeah.
When you're in dual 5 gig mode, are those antennas either the same or similar coverage area, or are they different coverage areas?
So that's a good question. The antennas that will actually primarily ship with the unit are you're going to have a typical dual band antenna for both, so the characteristics should be pretty much the same. Obviously, orientation is slightly different, so I'm not going to claim it will be an identical radiation pattern just because of orientation differences. but you should be minimal at that point.
But you're not limiting transmit power on one of the 5 gig radios.
No, that is not our intent. Any other questions?
So
Yeah.
is it four antennas on the one side is 4 radio chains for one of those radios, 4 on the other, or are you alternating them in some way to kind of provide?
If memory serves, and Venkat can always keep me honest on this, but if memory serves, they're actually alternated. I don't believe it's side and side.
Okay.
Any other questions on the AP? Cool deal. Now, all these APs have to plug into something at the end of the day. So we do have a multi-gig switch offer that is coming out. That will be the FortiSwitch M426E. So this will have 2.5 and 5 gig ports on it. Our first M-gig switch, so we're pretty excited about that. It also offers UPoE, so we are seeing a lot more demand for higher power levels, and this switch will allow us to provide those, not just necessary for access points some of the time, but we're seeing also some strange IoT equipment that needs high power levels as well. So this will allow you to get you there, as well as offering the faster throughputs on the M-gig.
The difference in the 2.5 and the 5 gig ports, are they physical ports, or is that the total that you can get out of the switch at one time?
Those are physically different ports.
Cool.
So I told you I'd talk a little bit about control and management. So as a reminder, we do have 3 different solutions for controlling and managing your access points here at Fortinet. One is, and our most popular metric, is using our FortiGate next generation firewall itself as a controller. And that's really handy. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk in our next section. But that tends to be an extremely popular model because lots of our customers have FortiGates already. And the fact that they can add some APs to this environment and manage it within the interface they already know is really valuable. We do also offer a dedicated controller option for those people who are married to a dedicated controller environment, or maybe just politically the way their IT and security groups are split up. They need to have that segregated. That's fine. We can offer that as well. And we do know that some companies are all about being cloud first. So if you prefer to stand these things up and be cloud managed, we have that as well. Now, looking at what we've done in each of these, big release for FortiOS, the operating system that runs on the FortiGate, was 6.2. That came earlier this year. Now, I could probably spend our entire time allotment talking just about all the different security features that came in that. There was 300 plus features. I'm just going to give a little short list here of the stuff that I think is most interesting to this crowd. And that would be things like adding wireless into our security rating. So folks who may be aware that the FortiGate has the ability to look at what's going on in the environment, look at its configuration, the configuration of your network, and give you a security rating, how secure it believes your network currently is. We can now factor some of the wireless information directly into that. So it'll factor into your score. We have access to that anyway because we're managing your wireless. We also took the FortiWLC, that is the wireless LAN controller. And even though that is a separate box, I can now add that into my network diagram that's dynamically shown in the FortiGate so that I can at least see the information within my FortiGate, understand its current status as well. And this is, again, all about that fabric idea. We want all these pieces of equipment talking to each other. We want them to be connected. So we don't want disparate systems that are unconnected to the Fortinet whole. And we did make some enhancements around SD-WAN, and we've found that SD-WAN seems to be going very hand in hand with a lot of access layer technology these days, and that's going to be one of our topics later today. Over on the dedicated controller side, we released FortiWLM 8.4. Now, this one we actually got a lot of attention on primarily because we completely overhauled the UX. So folks may remember this. This came out late last year, but it was too late for me to actually cover in Mobility Field Day last year, so I didn't get a chance to talk about it. So we completely revamped the UX, brand new user experience, got a lot of positive feedback from our customers around that. They really like the look and feel of it. And we're going to take you guys through WLM later today. So That's the wireless LAN management platform. We also allowed people to now import maps directly from our planning software, which is FortiPlanner. So instead of this being sort of a disconnected process where you use FortiPlanner and then you use M, again, we want everything working together. So now you can bring that map directly in. And we've also added, since we have those maps in there now, some static locate technology, so we can at least say, hey, this is the last known location of a client based on the information we have.
Do you have the ability to import maps directly from Ekahau?
We do not take maps directly from Ekahau at this time, no.
Is that on the roadmap that you can talk about, or?
What I will say is that I used to try and chat with UC pretty regularly. If that lets you know how uncertain I may be about answering that now,
Okay.
you might be able to make some assumptions given where UC is and isn't. I'm still hopeful that that's not going to go away, but it does mean I'm in a more challenged place to answer you with full information as I would have been otherwise.
Fair enough.
And for cloud management, one of the things I kind of realized is, we talked a lot about FortiAP Cloud last year, and when I said, oh, we've got cloud management, and I wanted to make a point that while yes, our cloud management has been updated, but I may have sent people away with the impression that the only way that you could manage through the cloud is if you stood up an AP and just wanted to manage that AP via the cloud. We actually have several cloud options depending on what you want to do and at what level you want to cloud manage. So cloud management of your APs does not mean you can't also be using the FortiGate. So if you have APs reporting into a FortiGate and that's acting as your controller, we have cloud management for the FortiGates as well. That's FortiGate Cloud. So by extension, that means you could be also managing that style of wireless environment via the cloud, if that's your preferred way of managing. And we have a overall management platform for all of our Fortinet Fabric products called FortiManager. And that has recently released also a cloud version. So if you're fine with doing the base level management, but you want your overall fabric management via FortiManager to be in the cloud, we have that as well. So whatever cloud level you might be interested in, we actually have something along that. Now I won't dive too much into what we're doing around IoT because I have a whole kind of deep dive section later on around Fortinet. But I did want to just mention here that we did release a couple different Fortinet releases this year. Since the last time we talked, Fortinet was actually relatively new to the portfolio when I talked last year, so it was sort of a, hey, we just got this. But we've added, of course, a bunch of Forti product into Fortinet to make sure that it all works together. Again, fabric mentality, trying to bring everything together. In addition, we've made some improvements in terms of logical network segmentation, as well as some policy management simplification to really drive home, make it a very simple and easy tool to use, yet powerful. And again, we'll talk about Fortinet in our, I believe it's the third session of the day. And while we do a lot of different security products, and I could, again, be up here going slide after slide after slide, talking about all the different various security products that we've brought out in new versions, there were two I wanted to highlight. Because one, they're new, and two, I think there is a certain level of applicability in our wireless world. One is FortiInsight, which is really all about trying to secure against insider threats. And part of the reason I bring this up is this is trying to use some advanced algorithms to try and make sure that you aren't doing something very different today than what you've done in the past. And given that, well, as all you guys here as delegates around the table, your machine goes all over the different place. Things can happen to that machine. When it's not on the corporate network, things may happen to your accounts, anything along those lines. This is a really nice technology because you still, in a sense, you and your machine represent what could be thought of as an insider threat, even if it's not you deliberately doing that. So this is a nice technology, and I think wireless tends to be a medium that is a little bit more susceptible than others, and the access layer in general is. So I think that that's an interesting one that to me, because I think that has applicability for us. The other one is FortiDeceptor. And again, I think it's a cool technology. It's the idea that I'm going to actually set up basically honeypots in my network and try to get the bad guys to look like this is low-hanging fruit to come attack. coaxing them out, kind of out of the darkness.
Is that a FortiFox?
We can go with that.
Or a trademarked something?
Decepticon.
Chris, would you describe the Fort Insight as like a UEBA-ish?
Yes, yes, that is definitely a good way to describe it. Yeah. The reason I think Deceptor has a certain amount of applicability to wireless is you guys are all on our guest network. Almost everywhere people have guest network, contractor networks, networks that are in some way, shape, or form relatively open, and you don't always have firm control of everybody who's coming in. So I think there actually can be some benefit into a technology that gives this deceptive, low-hanging fruit of, hey, if someone's going to do something bad, I'd really like them to attack my decoy so that I can start to characterize what they're doing and react accordingly. So when I kind of combed through all the stuff we've done across all our security projects, those were the two that stood out, and I thought, these are worth bringing up because I think they have a wireless angle. Which again brings me back to the fabric. And you can see we continue to build out this fabric, sharing information amongst all the different products that exist around it. And you pretty much are never going to see a presentation from Fortinet that doesn't include the fabric, and you're likely going to hear me talk about the fabric at least 2 or 3 more times today. Because it really is key to the philosophy of what we do and everything that we try to build around security-driven networking and this 3rd generation of network security. And our next topic actually is a very good example of that security-driven networking.